This video is an introduction to the use of the Rangecast player. These are audio controls here. You can mute and unmute the audio.
Put myself out at 3301 Glen Charm.
We'll leave the audio off during this presentation. What we're observing here is audio from the Dallas-Fort Worth region. There are dozens of scanners installed at multiple locations throughout the metropolitan region, recording audio from hundreds of agencies in a large geographic area. All of that audio is indexed by channel and broadcast time and brought together in this one single player, which allows both real-time listening to these agencies and going back in time to hear what was said previously if you want to review an event or something like that. In the main display panel here, we have an identity of the current transmission that is on the air. If we had the audio up, you would be hearing these transmissions. We have here the name of the agency that you're listening to in the particular broadcast channel, the time that that transmission was on the air, when the transmission began, and the length of the transmission. These transmissions arrive in a queue, so if, for example, two agencies are on the air at the same time, the player will play one transmission in its entirety. When that is complete, it will then play the second transmission in its entirety, so you don't miss content even if two transmissions are on the air at the same time. Also, when going back in time and listening to previous events, dead time between transmissions is removed, so you can quickly review an incident. The controls in the lower left are used for ordinary operations like play, pause, and skip. We can pause the audio, and we can resume. We can also skip any transmission and go immediately to the next available transmission with the skip button. If you hear a transmission of particular interest, you can hold on that particular broadcast channel by clicking in the display area. At that point, the display will say that it is holding, and the one single channel that it will only play audio from that one single audio source. You can release a hold by pressing again inside the display area. That can also be done with the hold button on the panel. It's common that in many areas there is more audio being broadcast than you can actually listen to. In 1 minute, typically more than 60 seconds of audio is available from all these agencies in the region. Rangecast offers several ways of handling that torrent of content. One option is to reduce the number of channels you're listening to. The panel down here can be used to select which particular agencies you want to hear at a given time. Another approach is the use of monitoring mode, which is the default mode of the Rangecast player. In this mode, the audio will not fall back in time more than about 5 minutes, and at that point, if there is more audio coming in that can be listened to, the software will automatically skip certain transmissions in order to keep close to real time. That's done in a somewhat intelligent manner based on the identity of the channel, the length of the transmission, and other factors are used to determine what to hear. A third approach that's available is there is an option in the player for changing the rate at which audio is played. Normally audio is played at 1-to-1 rate. It is possible to speed up the audio even up to 2 times so that you're able to hear more than 60 seconds of audio within 1 minute. That is for people who are really used to hearing these transmissions and can handle it being played back at a faster than normal rate. There are several ways in which you can view the arrangements of channels in your region. At the moment we're looking at, these are called views, at a view that organizes all the channels by the city and by the agency type. So for example, all fire dispatch channels from one city are all brought together onto a single button down here, or all police channels are brought together onto a single button from one town. There are other arrangements available for these. You can, for example, go to a view that shows you only Dallas channels. Now every single channel in Dallas is broken out onto its own button, giving you more fine-grained control of what you are listening to. At any given time, when a transmission is playing, in this panel, we also have an indication of which channel is being heard. And these buttons can be used as toggles. You can, for example, turn off a channel if you do not want to receive content from it. You can click and turn them back on again. There are also options here to turn off, for instance, all channels. So if we wanted to listen to a few specific channels, we could turn everything off, and at that point we could selectively turn on some particular channels we want to hear. After you are done making changes, if you want to go back to the way you were listening to it originally, you can push the restore button, the reset button here, which brings you back to the original arrangement of channels. If you're looking at a arrangement that has a very large number of channels, like this here has every channel in the Dallas metro region broken out onto its own button, and we wanted to, for instance, listen to a few specific channels from here. To make the display simpler, we can push the trim button, and that will give us those specific channels that we have selected all by themselves. And as always, you can push the reset restore button and come back to the way you were. The views that are in here, some of them will group all channels, some will group only some. For instance, if you want to listen only to fire dispatch channels, this shows you the fire dispatch from each town by itself. This here will organize all the police channels by town. And there are several here that are customized to the Dallas-Fort Worth region. And you can contact your Rangecast sales representative for information about customizing views and adding views that specifically focus in on the region that is of interest to you and arranges buttons as you want to have them arranged. Sometimes buttons, as in this case, represent single channels. In other situations, like if we were grouping together all of the towns in this way, this button represents all Dallas fire channels, not just one. There are many fire channels in Dallas. This is to make for a shorter list because, as you see, there are hundreds of agencies being monitored, so grouping things together that way can make it easier to manage a large quantity of content. The section on the upper left here is used to control the way in which the display is operating. Right now we are operating what's called a grid mode that shows a list of these agencies in a grid format below. It is also possible to go to a list view, which breaks out all of these channels into individual lines to review what content is available in the system and to select channels in that fashion. There is also a desktop view, which has at the same time both a list of the channels that can be controlled as well as a list of the transmissions. In this case, we are currently listening to the transmission that is highlighted. The ones that are below that are transmissions that have already played, and these are ones that are pending in queue to play as time is available. In monitoring mode, as noted, the audio can fall back a couple of minutes in time. This makes it possible, if several transmissions come in at once, for them to be played in sequence. It, however, has a limit of at most 5 minutes of fallback before it will manage the content by skipping transmissions that appear to be of lower priority and focusing on the content that is of higher priority. The section in here can be used, as well as down here, for controlling where you are in time. In the normal state, it's staying as close to real time as possible, but there are, if you want to go back and listen to a prior event, you can use the time slider here to move back. We're currently at 1:24 p.m. As you move this, the indicator on the left shows you what time you're at. So if you wanted to go back to 12:45 p.m., you could adjust the slider to that time. And now you are receiving transmissions from 12:45 as these play forward. You can see those in the transmissions panel down here as well. Note that the mode has changed. It previously said monitoring, meaning it was staying close to real time. Now it says forward, meaning we're playing forward, but we're not locked to real time. We're back, in this case, about almost an hour in time from real time. It is also possible, these controls up here control the mode, to go backwards. If you go to a reverse, now you'll hear the transmissions playing backwards in order in time. This is useful if you're trying to find the start of an incident. And when you use the skip button in reverse, you will be going backwards in time every time you skip a transmission. So again, this is reverse, and this is forward. To return to monitoring mode, that is playing in real time, you can use the left button here in that set for monitor mode. Also, the control down in the lower right can be used to skip to the current time in monitoring mode. There's also, this slider usually works over a 1 hour range. But if you want to go back further in time, you can click this and go to a 24-hour mode. And now you see we're at 1:30 p.m. We can go back many hours and listen to content that was recorded many hours ago in that fashion. If you need to go back more than 24 hours, it's also possible to enter time and dates directly over here to go to any point as long as the audio is still retained. There's a maximum depth to which the audio is retained. Usually it's in the order of days, but audio can be retained in the Rangecast system for as long as needed for your application. And once again, we can return back to the real-time monitoring mode and wait for new transmissions to arrive. The player looks basically the same on both a desktop environment and a mobile environment, although of course mobile the display area is more limited. Therefore, it's generally advantageous to use the other modes like the list of channels here, or there's also a list of transmissions available, or even under if you're really working with a small space, you can use this right option of the diamond symbol, which shows a more compact version of the player without any of the controls below. And typically the player will adapt to the size of your device and adjust the screen layout accordingly to make it work. It's the same program in either situation. There are other videos and documentation available for covering more advanced topics, like how to get a snapshot list of the transmissions around a certain time on certain channels, how to download audio files, features utilizing text transcription of the audio, and other options that are available to customize your experience of the Rangecast player.